Hi, everyone, and welcome to my new series called Freeport Local, a podcast about all things Freeport, Maine. I'm your host, Becky Holland, and I am a 10-year resident of Freeport, Maine, a place I absolutely love. I say 10 years because to me, that's a pretty long time, but as I've come to realize in my research for this podcast, yes, there are people who have been here far longer than myself, and 10 years is probably just the starting point to calling yourself a longtime resident. Okay, so my hope with this podcast is to share with you all of the great things that are happening in and around this amazing place that I get to call home. In this series, I hope to bring you information about topics such as businesses and festivals, community events, information and updates about the future of Freeport, and there's lots of things happening there, historical perspectives, definitely highlighting local people, and so much more. To give a little background, the inspiration for this podcast came to me while I was watching a recent video of a community meeting that shared a bunch of ideas about this massive revitalization effort towards redesigning what's being called the downtown corridor, which is mostly Main Street of Freeport. And there's more to come on that in future episodes. So while I was watching this video, I started to get out like a piece of paper to take some notes. And then I kind of looked at how long the video was and I sort of complained to myself like, oh, I don't really have time. And I just had this thought, like if it had been a podcast, then it could be something that I could multitask and listen to, and that's just kind of how I receive my news and information. And so I figured maybe I should give it a whirl. So I just so you know, I'm not a journalist. I'm not a broadcaster. I'm not any sort of civic planner or anything like that. But I do really love the medium of podcasts. I have noticed that in the last several years, most of my information is sourced from a variety of different podcasts. And I really do love to stay up to date with current events. And I sort of thought to myself, there's this space that seems to be missing in this medium, which is really capturing some of the local flavors and local information about small towns like Freeport, Maine. So I am excited about this series. And whether you're a local resident or a visitor to friends and family or a tourist, my goal with this podcast is to share all these amazing things about Freeport, Maine with you, to get you excited, to help you feel informed, to help you plan perhaps a visit. So here we go. In this first episode, what I want to do is I want to provide a little historical background about Freeport and very much so honor the first people of this land. While Freeport is most known as this shopping mecca, especially with a little known store called LL Bean, what I want to do is actually go back a little further or a lot further and share with you about Freeport's first people, who are the Wabanaki, and specifically the Abenaki. So long before the white European settlers arrived, this land that we call Freeport and most of New England was part of the territory of the Wabanaki Confederation, which is also known as the people of the Dawnland. And that actually is the meaning of the word Wabanaki. And it translates to the first to see the sunrise. Isn't that so beautiful? I've always thought that that was so beautiful. In this area, the Abenaki mostly lived along the coast and rivers and forests, moving with seasons. The Harrisecret River, which is a tidal river made up of several small tributaries and joins up with Casco Bay, was vital to the Wabanaki for food, travel, and trade. Like long ago, these natural resources of this land continue to be accessed and certainly celebrated today with people such as myself as residents who live here full time, with, again, visitors and tourists. Eventually, colonists moved into the area and established various communities along the seashores and waterways and built up communities specifically around shipbuilding and trade. Some of the most notable names and landmarks that you will see in and around the Freeport area include Porter's Landing, Mass Landing, and what is now known as South Freeport Village. Moving inland to access the railways, shoemaking became an important commodity and helped really to establish what's now the center of town, this village corridor, or otherwise the iconic downtown Freeport, and certainly L.L. Bean was at the center of that commerce. Fast forward a few years, or maybe like 100 or so, and in the early 80s, outlet shopping became a part of the American culture. I mean, who doesn't love a discount? And since LL Bean had established itself around 1912 with the, again, iconic Bean Boot, it had proved itself to be such a success and a tourist attraction almost entirely on its own as this store and experience. More and more shops moved into the area in hopes of benefiting from the popularity of LL Bean's flagship store. Now, today, we have many, many recognizable brands, both nationally and internationally, and Freeport's become this shopping mecca. Currently, Main Street is occupied by both these very familiar brands and also many locally owned shops, from dining, which we need more of, breweries, clothing stores, home goods, toy stores, outdoor equipment, and much more. And it really does celebrate the unique local talents that we have here, while also continuing to cater to the needs of both visitors and locals alike. Later in this series, I plan to highlight lots more about these locally owned businesses and stores, as well as all of the areas in and around the village, including, features about people and places and spaces and industry and so much more. So that was a little history of Freeport, and I'm going to go back to those first people, the Wabanaki, and in closing, share my gratitude and respect for this place by offering what's known as a land acknowledgement to honor the Wabanaki and all that they did for this land. If you've never heard of a land acknowledgement before, a land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes and respects the Indigenous peoples as the traditional stewards of the land. It honors their enduring relationship to the land, past, present, and future, and acknowledges the historical and ongoing impact of colonization. So here's my land acknowledgement. I acknowledge that the town of Freeport, the place I call home, exists on the traditional territory of the Wabanaki Confederacy, including the Abenaki people, who have lived in connection with and stewarded this land for generations and continue to do so today. I too hope to be a steward of this land, both as a resident and through this podcast series, and I am eternally grateful to the Wabanaki for their stewardship of this land. In the show notes, I will drop more information about the Wabanaki. I will put in some information about the Freeport Historical Society. And I did want to make a little plug for an amazing documentary called Dawnland, the English name of the Wabanaki. And it tells the story of the systematic removal of Native children from their homes in order to force them to assimilate into white culture and society, which happened all over the country. But this film is one of the first of its kind for a couple of reasons. One, it documents the devastating harm that was caused by this removal, but it also is one of the first of its kind. And I think the state of Maine was one of the first to work towards repair and reconciliation about the truth that happened here. And so it's a really, really incredible film. And if you have time to watch it, I highly recommend it. It is by the Upstander Project and PBS. And again, it's called Dawnland, and it's about the Wabanaki Truth and Reconciliation Commission in Maine. Thank you so much for listening. I have lots more episodes to come about the future of Freeport, local businesses, town leadership, some amazing places and spaces. So I hope that you will tune in again. And until then, have a great day.